Why research fails? Is this the capability of the researcher or the approach they adopt? What I have seen is a researcher normally do common mistakes again and again, and that is the reason why they don't achieve the desired result. Hi, my name is Dr. Shashikant Dikshit, and welcome to my channel Decode Data with SKD. In today's video, we will discuss about the common mistakes normally researchers do while performing the research. So let's start without wasting time. Let's start with the common mistakes that normally researchers do. The first and the foremost common mistake that we go for is called the unclear problem statement. Now, what happens is whenever we start with a research, we try to find out the title first. But mind it, it's not the title, it's basically the problem. Research is always for on a problem, not on a title. So please don't find the title, find the problem and try to find out the answer to it with the help of research. This is the first mistake that we do. We go for a glorified title. We try to basically talk about the glorified title, but we don't focus much on the problem. So please find the problem. If the problem is vague, you will end up with nothing. And basically, this is what normally happens. There is no problem, there is no answer to it. Right? This is the first mistake. The second mistake that we go for is called the weak literature review. Actually, what normally I have seen is in case of weak literature review, we do not basically talk about the systematic literature review, or we'll say that we'll basically focus on the convenience based literature review. And what normally we do is we try to summarize the literature done by us. Here, the biggest mistake we do, we need not to summarize it, we have to basically find the gap from it, that what is the gap is there where in which you can go for the research. So research gap is the most important, and you normally do the literature review for the research gap, not for the summarization of it. This is the second mistake we do. The third mistake that we go for is called the wrong research design. Now wrong research design is something very important for us. Like, when we say wrong research design is nothing but choosing the wrong method. Like, let's you are doing a research in which you are basically focusing on experimental research, right? But what you do is you basically go for a survey. Now, if you're doing a survey instead of experimental research, you will not find anything. This is what the mistake that we do. We go for a wrong sample size or lower sample or small sample size. Sometimes it's a biased sample size because we are not in a position to work hard. So what we'll do is we'll take the sample that is completely on convenience. So that is the third mistake we do. Don't do the mistake. Try to check which methodology we have to adopt. The fourth common mistake is what normally we do is called the poor data quality. So we collect the data that is basically of a poor quality. And when you do a research, when you enter the data, you will get some result because it's very simple concept of computer, garbage in, garbage out. So if you give the poor result, poor data, you'll get the poor result also, right? So try need not to go for a poor data collection. Please focus more on data collection and get the unbiased proper data so that you will have a better result from your research. The fifth mistake that we normally do is called the lack of statistical understanding. And a common example, what I have seen in my life is people used to do regression without checking the assumption. So when you have to go when you have to use regression to prove the relationship, you have to check some assumptions. Five, six assumptions are there, but we normally don't do. We collect the data and we implement the regression analysis, we find the answer and we do the conclusion. If you are doing this, you are basically land up with the wrong answer, or you can say wrong conclusion. So before going to implement the statistical technique, please try to understand the technique first. Every technique used to have their own, you can say their own style of working, right? Every technique used to have a different type of data sets. Like when you go for a social science research, you may not go for a scale, but you may go for a rating. So this is what you have to understand. This is the fifth and the biggest mistake people do. Then the sixth one, the sixth mistake, the next mistake that we have is called the confirmation bias. And this is very common and silly mistake normally we do. Only, what happened is researcher always have something in their mind and they try to find out the answer based on that what they believe. So researcher try to prove what they already believe. And this is not true. You may believe something, but your data is saying something else. So your research is not what you believe, your research is what your data is saying. Right? So you have to focus more on that instead of going for a confirmation bias where you believe and want to prove it. Don't do that. And the most important mistake again that we do, called the seventh mistake, is basically the relationship between research, statistics, and analysis. Please understand, research is a question, statistics is a validation, and analysis is the insight. Here is a question, there is an answer. You have to validate that answer. And after validation of that answer, you have to find out the different insights from it. If you don't understand this relationship, you will never succeed in your research. So these are the seven common mistakes normally a researcher do while performing the research. I request you to please go through this. Don't do these mistakes. I assure you that you will get a best possible result. Hope you like this video. Please write in comment any query that you have so that I can clear all your doubts. In my next video, again, I'll come with all this in a more simple and more clear way. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.